Hey everyone, this is Rabdia's blog, and today's video is called The Underrated Movie Tag. Now, this video was tagged to me by Boobop1987, and you can check out her channel in the description box below, and I really enjoyed her channel, and this is one of the first few tag videos I have done. So thank you, Boobop1987, for tagging me for this video. And again, this video is called The Underrated Movie Tag, and basically, Boobop1987 asked me several questions that deal with underrated movies and about how I feel about each movie. So I'm gonna give I'm gonna answer all these questions and give out my thoughts on each underrated movie that I really enjoyed and that I think deserve a lot more attention. So here we go. Okay, so the first question says, "What is your most favorite underrated movie of all time?" My most favorite underrated movie of all time has to be The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. I really enjoyed watching the movie The Adventures of Baron Munchausen because it reminded me strongly of The Fool and the Flying Ship, and I think that was one of The Adventures of Baron Munchausen was one of Terry Gilliam's best films next to Brazil. So I really enjoyed this film because it was full of adventure, it was full of comedy. I thought all the actors and actresses in this movie were very well acted, and I really like the fantasy elements of this series. And yeah, again, it's related strongly to The Fool and the Flying Ship with the runner and the strong man and the Baron acting as a fool. Well, except he's not that simple-minded in this version, but I really like this movie because it's full of adventure, and I think it's something that a lot of people who like comedy shows in general would really enjoy this movie, especially if you're a Terry Gilliam fan and you've been enjoying a lot of Terry Gilliam's past works before. The Adventures of Baron Munchausen was one of those movies I really enjoyed, and I think it's just heavily underrated because I think it was like a box office bomb, but I think it's a great movie that was heavily underrated by a lot of the mass audience. So let's move on to the next question. The next question asks, which movie character is the most underrated? So I picked two movie characters for this question. One of them is Miss Spider from James and the Giant Peach, and the other one was the Skelsies from The Dark Crystal. I picked Miss Spider from James and the Giant Peach because I really enjoyed James and the Giant Peach as a movie, and I thought that was a very underrated movie. And Miss Spider is like one of the best characters in that movie, and I really enjoyed the fact that she's one of those characters who's like sort of an outcast to the insects, but at the same time she's willing to protect James with her life. So if it's something about her character that she's loyal to James, she's very friendly, even though she's a spider and she's meant to eat other bugs. I like the fact that she's like that loner in the group, but she's willing to like be close towards James, and that helps her like actually be much closer to the other bugs in the film. So I found her character to be really interesting in the film, and I think she's heavily underrated as one of the best characters in the James and the Giant Peach film. So I definitely picked Miss Spider. And then the other character I picked was the Skelsies from the Dark Crystal. The Skelsies were the villains of the movie, and they look like the vulture like puppets in the movie. And I think they're like really underrated villains as a whole because I think they were fantastic villains. But if you have never seen the Dark Crystal before, you probably don't know who the Skelsies is, and you don't know what kind of terrible things they've done to the main characters in that film. So I definitely think the Skelsies are heavily underrated as villains, and I think they should have rated a little higher on any movie villains list. They're just really terrifying characters in the movie, and I think they're heavily underrated when it comes to the villains department. So let's move on to the next question. So question number 3 is, who was the most underrated actor? To me, the most underrated actor has to be Keith David. Now, most people might think of Keith David as being the voice of Goliath from Gargoyles or being the voice of the cat from Coraline, but a lot of people haven't seen I think a lot of people haven't noticed that Keith David has done a lot of acting, besides doing voice acting. And I thought he was pretty good at doing some regular acting, and I think he's heavily underrated when it comes to mentioning who are the best actors in Hollywood. I think he's a pretty good actor, but I think he's heavily underrated when it comes to who's some of the best actors in Hollywood. And most people just remember him for his voice, basically. Like, he does a lot of voice work, and he does rate high on my top voice actors list. But I think he was a great actor, and I think he's heavily underrated. But and I think he should have been recognized more for his talents on the big screen besides his voice acting. Even though his voice acting is fantastic, but he was a great actor too, and I think he's heavily underrated in that department. So let's move on to the next question. So question number 4 is, who was the most underrated actress? The most underrated actress to me is Meg Ryan. Even though Meg Ryan had did a couple lots of popular films back in the 90s, I think nowadays a lot of people don't know much about her acting, what she done prior to the 90s or the 80s. So I definitely think she's an underrated actress. She's been in a lot of good movies in the past, but again nowadays you don't hear much about her. I don't know if it's because she's doing things in her personal life or something like that. But yeah, I think Meg Ryan's pretty underrated as an actress. Like, not much is really said about her acting. Like, certain movies are talked about in regards to her acting, but I think she's heavily underrated as an actress, and she's a great actress. And I think she should have gotten a little more attention to her acting. So I definitely pick Meg Ryan for most underrated actress. So let's move on to the next question. Number 5 is, what is your most favorite animated movie that is so underrated? I actually have 2 for this category, and they are Coraline and The Fool and the Flying Ship. I picked Coraline because I think that it's a fantastic movie that was like faithful to the original book written by Neil Gaiman, and I really loved the book, and I thought that the movie really portrayed the scary tone of the book very well. It was being faithful to the book. Like, it felt like when I was watching the movie I was actually watching the book also, and that's what I really liked about the movie, and I think it's heavily underrated, especially if you were a fan of the book yourself, and the movie didn't get a lot of recognition that it deserved. So I definitely think Coraline is an underrated movie, but it's a movie I really love watching a lot. So I definitely choose Coraline as one of my favorite anime movies. And then the second one was The Fool and the Flying Ship. Like, almost nobody has heard of that film unless I call out Robin Williams' name. Chances are a lot of people are not gonna know what The Fool and the Flying Ship is. And it's always been remained to be one of my most favorite rabbit ears stories ever told, and a lot of people have never heard of it. Like, well, I would say a lot of people never heard of Rabbit Ears as a company before, but I love The Fool and the Flying Ship, and that's always been my most favorite story from the Rabbit Ears Productions company, and it's heavily underrated. Like, almost nobody really heard of it, and Robin Williams did a fantastic job narrating that story, and I think that when the people talk about Robin Williams' works, The Fool and the Flying Ship is almost never mentioned. So I think that should have gone on one the list of one of Robin Williams' greatest films, which I might actually make a list someday of my top 10 favorite films with Robin Williams, maybe someday. But The Fool and the Flying Ship is definitely one of my most favorite films that's heavily underrated. So let's move on to the next question. Question number 6 is, what is your most underrated movie saga? My most underrated movie saga is probably The Scorpion King. Now, some people have probably heard of the Mummy trilogy starring Brendan Fraser. A lot of people probably don't know that the Scorpion King was like a sequel, a spin-off series from the Mummy trilogy. And the Mummy trilogy was a little more well known than the Scorpion King, but I found the Scorpion King saga to be pretty interesting. The first one starred The Rock, or Dwayne Johnson, and I thought it was pretty good. I thought The Rock was a very good actor in that movie, so I really enjoyed the Scorpion King saga, even though the next two movies in the Scorpion King saga didn't star The Rock, but it was still pretty good. And I think that the Scorpion King saga is pretty underrated. We don't even hear a lot about the Scorpion King in the Mummy trilogy, and I would have loved to hear more about the Scorpion King in the Mummy trilogy. And even though the Scorpion King was able to get his own set of trilogy, it's not like as well known as the Mummy trilogy. So I definitely picked the Scorpion King saga for this question. So let's move on to the next question. Question number 7 is, which underrated movie had a really good score that no one has mentioned? I definitely have to mention James Horner's music for Casper and We're Back, a Dinosaur Story. It's like when people talk about James Horner's music, they mostly talk about his music for The Land Before Time, and I think he did music for Jurassic Park also. But most people talk about his his scores for those movies. But a lot of people never really talk about his musical scores for Casper and We're Back, a Dinosaur Story. Casper especially, I love Casper as a movie, and that's another movie that's heavily underrated. But his score for Casper was just beautiful, and I'm surprised a lot of people who are fans of James Horner's music, never really mention about Casper, his musical score for Casper, and it's just a fantastic score, so beautiful. It should have been mentioned a lot, and some of the best musical scores from James Horner. And then also We're Back, a Dinosaur Story, which was an animated movie that was heavily underrated. Also, I think a lot of people haven't even heard of this movie, but James Horner also did the music for We're Back, a Dinosaur Story, and again, it was one of those movies that was heavily underrated, and his musical score in that movie kind of goes by unnoticed a lot. So, I mean, I would say both Casper and We're Back, a Dinosaur Story has just as beautiful musical scores from James Horner as did any other film that James Horner has done musical scores for that were a little more popular. So let's move on to the next question. Number 8. What is your most favorite underrated movie that is so epic? An underrated movie that I really enjoyed, that was so epic would have to be Willow. It's kind of funny how all these years I used to watch Willow a lot when I was little, and then I just now remembered that movie existed. So that shows just how underrated this movie was. But Willow was this film that starred Warwick Davis, I believe. He used to star in the Leprechaun films back in the day. But it was pretty much an epic film that I really enjoyed watching a lot when I was little. And, I can't find the VHS tape for it. That's probably why I forgot about this film until just now. But I really enjoyed that film. I thought it was quite epic, and I think it's heavily underrated, as you could tell. I didn't remember it until just now, and a lot of people don't really seem to talk about it. But it's one of those movies I really enjoyed watching a lot when I was a kid, and hopefully I'll go back once again and watch that movie and see how it's manages to still hold up to this very day. But yeah, Willow is like a epic movie that was heavily underrated, and I don't think a lot of people even noticed that movie existed. So let's move on to the next question. Number 9. Which Miyazaki film is the most underrated? I have to say the most underrated Miyazaki film to me has to be Castle in the Sky. A lot of people talk about My Neighbor Totoro, sort of. A lot of people talk about Princess Mononoke, and a lot of people definitely talk about Spirited Away. But I barely hear a lot of people talk about Castle in the Sky. I used to watch Castle in the Sky quite a bit when I was little. Well, maybe not as much as Spirited Away or Princess Mononoke, but Castle in the Sky was another movie I really enjoyed, and a lot of people don't seem to talk about it a lot. But I thought it was a very good movie that was heavily underrated if you're a Hayao Miyazaki fan. But I really enjoyed Castle in the Sky, and again, I think it's heavily underrated, and I think more people should check out that movie. It's just a great movie overall. So the next question is going to be number 10. Which actor or actress has the most underrated movies? I would have to say it would have to be Holly Hunter. I chose Holly Hunter because a lot of her movies, a lot of people are not very aware of. Like I can barely name off a lot of movies that she starred in that would actually be popular. The only popular movie I know of that she kind of starred in would have to be The Incredibles as doing the voice of Mrs. Incredible. But other than that, I never hear a lot of the other movies she was in, even though I'm well aware of her care of the actress. But a lot of the movies that she starred in I'm not very aware of. So I definitely think Holly Hunter starred in a lot of underrated movies. And if that's Holly Hunter in the Batman versus Superman movie, and if Batman versus Superman does very well next year, she her acting career, or well, the movies that she stars in might not be so underrated anymore. More people might know about the movies that she starred in if Batman versus Superman does very well. Okay, and the last question is number 11. What is your most favorite underrated movie song? My most favorite underrated movie song has to be "Let Me Be Surprised" from All Dogs Go to Heaven. It's like a lot of Don Bluth songs, a lot of films that Don Bluth has directed has songs that are memorable. Like a lot of the songs from American Tail and The Land Before Time were popular, but a lot of people don't talk about the songs in All Dogs Go to Heaven. And one of the songs that I really enjoyed in that movie was "Let Me Be Surprised," which was sung by Charlie and Annabelle, and it was just such a fantastic song, and I really love listening to it a lot. And I think it's heavily underrated. Like a lot of people don't really talk about that song, and I think that's a song that should be talked about a lot more because it's just such a fantastic song. I love the beat, I love the singing, and it's sad that this song doesn't get a lot of recognition. But I really love "Let Me Be Surprised" from All Dogs Go to Heaven. Well, that's my underrated movies tag, and here are the following people I'll be tagging next: Comic Uno, Mr. J's Comics, Daniel Locke's four Daniel Locke's Food 42992. So only three people so far, but those are the three people I'll be tagging. But anybody who wants to do this movie tag video are free to do so. So I also tag anybody, absolutely anybody who's willing to do this video. This is a great video, and if there's any other underrated movies you think deserves more recognition, I would definitely recommend to do this movie tag. It's fantastic. I like to thank Boobop 1987 for letting me do this movie tag. I just love it. There's just so many underrated movies out there that doesn't get a lot of recognition, and I think they deserve some kind of recognition. So this is a good tag video to do that will help get a lot of underrated movies for the recognition they deserve. So anybody who's interested in doing this tag, please feel free to comment below. Tell me what are your favorite underrated movies of all time. Maybe answer these questions if you want to in the comments below. Like, tell me what underrated movies you really enjoyed in the comments below. Well, that's my video, and please feel free to follow me on Twitter so I can keep you updated any new videos I post up, and also like my Facebook page, Rowdy's Blog's Best Comments. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is Rowdy's Blog, and I'll see you later.